What's up, YouTube? Welcome back to another clip from our first herpetological panel forum all about rainbow boas. If you want to see the whole thing, it's over an hour long. Links up here. But let's get into it. These are some of the most commonly asked questions asked of rainbow breeders. And I've got Dave Calling, John Wiseman, Steve Green, and Ike Leitner here to answer it for you. They're the experts, so let's hear from them. Awesome. So next question, and then I'll ask this one to you, John. Why do I never see my rainbow boa?
Because you're not looking hard enough. No. Well, I that's a hard question for me to answer because every time I open a drawer, I see my rainbow boa. You know, rainbow boas are nocturnal, so they're typically going to hide during the day. And if you've got a lot of stuff in there for them to hide, they're going to hide. Me, I have all of my rainbow boas are in tubs. They're in drawers. I have specially designed racks that hold huge tubs, and I pull out a tub and there's a rainbow boa. If I have to, I turn over the log that he's under, and there he is. But the rainbow boas aren't typically active during the day. So if you've got a vivarium type of situation where you've got a lot of stuff for it to hide under or whatnot, no, you're not going to see it out. You're going to have to wait till the evening to see that.
I mean, I think that makes a lot of sense, right? They're cryptic animal and they're nocturnal. So put those two together.
I will add to that if I can.
Yeah,
I'm sorry I'm interrupting you, but they are nocturnal, so you're not really going to see them out cruising the day. But if you bring them out, they're pretty active. They're not ball pythons. They're not just going to sit in one spot. They're fairly active. So if you get them out and you want to, play with them, they're great animals.
Yeah, they're not gonna fall asleep on your hands, and you certainly can't. I've heard of people falling asleep with their ball python and waking up and it's still right there next to them.
Not with the rainbow.
I don't think that would be advisable. Great. So thanks, John. Steve, move on. Why does humidity need to be up around 90% for these animals, especially for the younger ones?
Because they don't thrive without humidity. They will not eat, they get stressed. They need 95% humidity.
Right. I mean, because they're from the Amazon, right?
They're from the Amazon, and they're the rainforest, and it rains all the time.
Yeah, I think. Sorry.
And they can't handle high heat because you have to think in the Amazon, they're on the canopy floor where there's not a lot of sun. So they don't need direct light, and because they don't get direct light most of the time on the canopy floor, which is very hot and humid.
Let me add something to that, Stephen. If you think of these animals from an evolutionary standpoint, we call them rainbow boas, but they're not boas. They're not BCCs or BCIs. They're actually more closely related to an anaconda.
Yeah, that's right.
So I think when I think of rainbow boas, I think of them more as a water snake. I've got water bowls that are big enough for them to completely get into, and oftentimes they're in there. So if we start to think about what they actually are, it makes sense that they need the higher humidity.
Yeah, absolutely. Evolutionary wise, that's their environment, right? We all know reptiles are specialists, and they can't just turn on an air conditioning or anything like that if it's too hot. Super, thank you. Moving on to Ike. One thing that people find in at least with a lot of other animals, but is it a concern with rainbow boas? How do you prevent scale rot in a rainbow boa when you have too much moisture? Is that a thing?
Okay, so I've never experienced scale rot from a rainbow boa at all. But I will say that you don't want to make their enclosure too wet. That is an important thing. And so I've seen a lot of people that go overboard with misting systems, foggers, humidifiers, all this stuff, when they really just need to have a large water bowl, have the right substrate and limits of ventilation in their cage, and not keep the floor of the cage soaking wet though. and there's a big difference there. And so if you do keep them on too wet of an enclosure, what you'll see is that they'll actually start to almost look like your hands if you've been in the bathtub too long or something, where they start to shrivel up. And the rainbow boa can actually look that way, taking on too much water. It almost gets a wrinkle look to its skin. And it's just bad all the way around. You have to make sure that they have to dry out while still having relatively high humidity in there.
What happens if temps get over 85 degrees? Don't the snakes self-regulate their temperature?
Well, it's not worth finding out, and that can pretty quickly kill a rainbow boa. So one of the most important pieces of husbandry equipment that you can buy is a nice thermostat, and you have to really be diligent about checking on your equipment also. Not only buying a nice thermostat, but checking on the temperature probe, making sure it's in the right spot and it's all plugged in properly. And it just takes one mistake. You unplug your equipment and plug it back in the wrong way, and next thing you know, your rack is overheating. And rainbow boas, they hit temperatures above 85. It can be lethal very. So that's one of the most crucial things about rainbow boas. And they might not have time to self-regulate. They might not have space in their cage, depending on how people have their enclosures set up. It can overheat well past the 85-degree mark, and it can be hundreds, and even on the cool end, over the limit. So that's a very critical thing for rainbow boas.
Thank you. Yeah, and I think I'll add on that too is when you, even with the thermostat, back it up. Use a laser temperature gun. They cost like 10 to 15 bucks. Just keep a fresh battery in it, and check your temps as well. So don't just rely on the thermostat to be accurate. Super.
Absolutely.
And John, I'll ask you. I can basically feed these guys as much as I feed my ball python, right?
Of course, go for it. No, don't do that. Rainbow boas are ravenous eaters. They will eat as much as you throw at them. They will regurgitate if they eat too much, and if they do, that's sort of a quick downward spiral. I think of their feeding sort of like I think about an emerald tree boa. The emeralds are the same way. They'll eat as much as you throw at them, but if they eat too much, they start to regurgitate. They regurgitate a few times in a row, man. It is hard to get them back. Mm-hmm. My rule of thumb, every week I feed them, every 7 to 10 days, I feed them a rodent that's no bigger than the biggest part of their body. That's sort of the rule of thumb. And if you see them out cruising around looking for food, don't feed them. They're not Burmese pythons. You can't power feed them and grow them to 20 feet in 2 years. So the feeding, the proper feeding is all a part of the proper husbandry. I wouldn't feed my rainbow boas twice a week, just like I wouldn't let their temperatures get above 85. Mm-hmm. It's just all part of the husbandry and the proper care. I've seen people grow up rainbow boas pretty quick, and they're overfeeding them, and they're lucky that the snake hasn't, gone south. But that's an exception, and you don't want to do that. You want to grow them at a nice rate. As Dave alluded to this earlier, if your female is breeding size in 2 to 3 years, you didn't do it right. It should take 4 to 5 years for a female to be breeding size, and a minimum of 2 to 3 years for a male as well, if you're feeding them properly. The other thing is, a lot of us, on your panel, the 4 of us, as well as the people that are watching, they probably want to breed rainbow boas. They probably want to breed them for profit. If you have an obese snake, they're not good breeders. You want a good, strong snake. You want your males to be nice and lean. An obese male is not a good breeder. An obese female is not a good breeder.
I think that's an excellent point too. That not only are you doing right by your snake, to feed it slow, but you're doing right by yourself as well.
Can I weigh in with something?
Yeah, definitely.
So I made the mistake when I first got my first rainbow boa from Dave. And I had a carpet python. I thought I could feed her just like a carpet python. And I found out real quick I couldn't do that. She regurgitated on me for 7 months. And Dave helped me nurse her back to health. And I thought there were times that I was going to lose her. You know, it would be 5 and 6 days after eating, she would regurgitate what was ever in her stomach if I just made eye contact with her. You know, you really have to take it slow with them. You can't rush them. You can't power feed them. You can't grow them fast. You have to take it slow and steady.
From a biological standpoint, when those snakes regurgitate, you know, they're not just dumping their meal, they're dumping all of the enzymes and the bacteria in their stomachs that digest that meal. So when they've regurgitated a few times on you, they don't have any of those crucial enzymes and crucial bacteria that they need. One of the things you can do is you can give it back to them. I think there's a product called Benny Back or something like that.
Nutribac.
Nutribac. You can give that back to them, but that's not real. It's artificial.
No.
So
it's not the same as their natural stuff, but it is, you know, it's a supplement that does help.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. Dave, let me ask you, how big should the enclosure be? And can I put my baby in his adult cage now? So more specific, let's talk about neonates. Because we kind of know the industry standard that you're going to need probably a 4-foot cage, at least 3 feet with some space for an adult. But what about neonates? Can I put them in their adult cage right off the bat? What kind of caging do they need?
Well, you can always put a small snake in a large cage. The problem that you're going to run into with a smaller snake is, well, first off, small snake in a large cage is real easy to hide and real easy to think it's gone when it's just hidden. The other problem with a large cage is maintaining the proper temperature and humidity across the entire cage for baby, because the babies require the higher humidity than an adult. An adult is much more able to withstand lower temperatures and even greater temperature gradients than a baby is. I put my babies in a little shoebox-sized tub rack, and then at about a year, they moved to a rack that's called a sweater box, which is like twice that size. And then in another year-ish, they moved to what's called a blanket box, which is like half the size of a normal cage or tub rack. And then, just keep moving them up as they grow.
John, you've got one there. What size is that?
This is a shoebox rack. I'm in my office. My most of my snakes are on the other side of the house, but I keep my babies in here because I have a Bengal and he knows how to open the cages.
Nice.
So this is a baby that was produced this year. It's a pearl, and it is in a shoebox rack. This is basically what you would buy at the store as just a shoebox, and they will be in there. Well, my babies are in here until they're sold. But a year maybe, and then I start moving them up.
Yeah, and I don't know. I can't tell you how many times I see on someone's page or a comment in any paper or any page about any snake, and someone asks, "Well, how big is too big?" And I can't tell you how many times someone answers, "Oh, there's no such thing as too big for a snake." But I just gotta feel that there's so many caveats with that I think I'm glad you guys both brought up the fact that you keep it in this shoebox size, 6 to 8 quart size tub for the first year of its life, and they do great. Like they're eating. You can maintain the temps and the humidity the right way. Right? Are there any downsides to having it in that small of an enclosure? Do you guys find it stunting them in any way?
Doesn't stunt. The key thing is you need to just clean it.
Wow, so there you have it. Sorry, at the very last moment, cut Dave off there a little bit at the end. What he was saying is once it gets too messy and it's too difficult keep the enclosure clean that your snake is in, might be time to consider bumping him up into a larger enclosure. But otherwise, he keeps his neonates in that shoebox. It's like a 6 or an 8 quart tub for up to the first year. But for most breeders, they sell before that even happens anyway. Well, that's it, guys. Some of the most common questions you might have for keeping Rainbow Boas. As always, like and subscribe to this channel. Please do your part by spreading this information, by commenting in the comment section. Tell me if there's something you want to see more of, if you thought was interesting on this. And of course, if you want to check out some of the bigger questions that we spend a little bit more time, like do Rainbow Boas bite? Do they need UVB? I've got links to those videos here as well. Guys, that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed learning something.